I'm joining you from Federal Way City Hall right now in a conference room outside my office. And I want to thank you for joining us during this unprecedented time in both our country and region, and really worldwide when dealing with this pandemic. Our community partners from South King Fire and Rescue, Chief Pennington, and Lake Haven Water, John Bowman and Lake Haven Water and Sewer are here on the phone as well, as is Police Chief Andy Wong to talk about what our police department is doing at this time. We're going to be talking about how each organization is responding to the COVID-19 outbreak in the region. Each of the representatives here with us today will be here to chime in on any questions you may have. As of this morning, we are told through the King County website and the state websites that in King County there are 693 confirmed cases of COVID-19 and there have been 60 deaths. We've been unable to attain the numbers with regard to how many of those numbers are in Federal Way. We have repeatedly asked King County for those numbers and have not been provided. Some of that has to do with, and I think a large part of it has to do with HIPAA protections and privacy protections, but we're working through that with our county partners and communicating that as a community we want those numbers. I want to talk a bit about what we're doing here at the city to prevent the spread of COVID-19 both in the community and among our staff members. Starting today, there'll be limited service for walk-in customers at City Hall. We are now asking customers seeking walk-in service at City Hall to utilize other means of conducting business. We posted signage on the main doors to City Hall with the appropriate phone numbers and email addresses for all of the city's departments. I want to make it clear though, City Hall is open and we are operating. It's just about how we are operating and making sure that we're doing this for the benefit of the health and safety of not only our employees, but the public as well. Now, staff is available during normal business hours, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., to serve customers electronically, by mail, and by phone. The Community Development Department's Permit Center closed its doors for in-person business on Wednesday, but has continued to serve customers electronically. Additional staff are available to handle phone calls, emails, and electronic submittals. City staff are providing inspections and code enforcement services, which is a vital service to continue. I've also instructed as many staff members here at City Hall who are able to work from home to do so. I want to make sure that there are a great deal of resources out there, and also one thing I have not mentioned is I'm joined here at staff here in the conference room with our emergency manager, Ray Gross, who's in the room with me right now, and he's been an instrumental partner in making sure that we navigate our way through this. Here at the city, we also stood up an outbreak advisory team made primarily of management team members, department directors, that also includes our emergency manager, Ray Gross. I'm joined just outside my conference room by Sarah Bridgeford, our human services manager, and I've got some important information in regard to human services related issues. Okay, so of course earlier this month we closed the Community Center, Dumas Bay, and the Performing Arts and Events Center at least through March 31st, and we did that about a week and a half ago. I think we will likely revisit that issue in regard to the duration of those closures. There's also limited services at the Municipal Court of Federal Way, and in fact I just actually got off the phone moments ago with the presiding judge, Dave Larson, our great judge in this community, and I want to let you know that while we're closing the front doors at the front for regular service, the municipal court remains open and the municipal court doors are open. While they've got limited services and they're delaying hearings, the municipal court is open at this time. Now, court operations will continue as normal for cases involving domestic violence, driving under the influence, physical control, and all in-custody cases. Other provisions to the order include probation will meet with people via telephone or email, but defendants on drug and alcohol monitor will continue to report to the court in person as required by probation. The court will be rescheduling due dates for payments, which have been extended for 90 days. I'd also like to address our next City Council meeting on April 7th, working with Council President Honda and all of our very hardworking and dedicated council people. We've decided that there will no longer be in-person comments accepted at any council or committee meetings. Moving forward, all council members will be attending meetings remotely, and staff will be secured and facilitating the meeting from chambers. And any citizen who would like to come to City Hall to review the meetings can do so from a live feed, which will be stationed on the first floor of City Hall, which is, there's a meeting room called the Heilbus Room, just outside the regular council meeting chambers. This will help with social distancing and keep a separation between staff and the public. I do want to make sure that it's clear that anybody who wants to provide public comment at a council meeting just needs to get us these comments, letters, or emails at least 2 hours before the regular meeting. Now, as for the restaurant takeout piece to this, according to the guidelines from King County Public Health, while the on-site consumption of food or dining is prohibited, food establishments who adhere to the COVID-19 prevention measures may remain open for drive-through, takeout, and delivery services. I think we've all heard that, but I just want to make sure that we reiterate that. The Small Business Administration, and you'll hear about them being referred to as SBA, has issued some guidance for businesses and employers to plan and respond to the coronavirus. We have some links on our page for access to information on SBA products and resources. SBA also recently announced low-interest federal disaster loans for working capital to Washington State small businesses suffering substantial economic injury as a result of the coronavirus. I think it's also important to note that in the governor's announcement and press conference earlier a few days ago, the governor announced $5 million in microloans that is going to be distributed, and so that there'll be more on that later. I want to let you know that in regard to businesses in Federal Way, we have reached out to literally dozens of businesses to make sure that we're doing everything we can as a community to support them and help them in this time of need. The Federal Way Chamber of Commerce has also created a list of resources and information for small business dealing with the effects of coronavirus. I would also note that if you, one of the things that there's a great deal of information sharing going on with our elected officials. I had a phone conference today with our Senator, Claire Wilson, who's doing a phenomenal job, and we had a great deal of conversation about the emergency response being conducted at every level. And we talked about the Washington State dedicated coronavirus response webpage that is being provided with the state, and it's got a tremendous amount of information on there. I would also refer you to the website of King County Public Health. They're actually just on King County website, and they have a tremendous website that has all kinds of helpful information. Then, with regard to the City of Federal Way and its webpage, we have a dedicated webpage, and this is just copied off the front pages of it, and we've got links and important information on that website. I mentioned the Federal Way Chamber of Commerce, and they've done a tremendous job with regard to getting information out through their website as well, and we've been coordinating and communicating. I'd like to thank our Economic Development Director, Tim Johnson, who has visited and talked with many of these businesses as well. Now, other resources include guidance from the Governor's Office as well as the Association of Washington Business. As we mentioned, we visited grocers in Federal Way. Tim Johnson had visited over 22 restaurants and make sure that we are reaching out to as many of these people as we can. We're coordinating with a variety of agencies, such as the Washington Economic Development Association, the Greater Seattle Partnership, Port of Seattle, the Seattle Metro Chamber, our own Federal Way Chamber of Commerce, as we said, the Federal Reserve, the Small Business Association, SBA, and the Economic Development Administration, and so many others. Additionally, given that restaurant employees are being laid off, we're directing them to grocers and others who are hiring. Economic Development is working on connecting restaurant service workers with grocery stores. Now we know they need a lot of employers, are going through hiring, and people who cannot be otherwise employed because of the restaurant prohibition at this point should be connecting with those grocers. So at this stage, one of the things I want to talk about before we turn it over to our partners are what we're doing with regard to human services. I want to let you know that we've been reaching out to service providers to making sure that the most vulnerable and less fortunate of our community, the homeless, are receiving information and guidance. We have actually extended the hours through funding, a decision I made to fund at a $10,000 level at $2,000 per week, the day center in Federal Way so they could expand their hours. I'd like to say a special thank you to the day center for what they're doing and their continued services, and also to the Catholic Community Service Organization, who not only has done a tremendous job in making sure that the day center is staffed, but also making sure that our first ever emergency shelter for inclement weather and dangerous weather went into effect. So, currently the day center had hours of 3 a.m. To 10 a.m. to 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. We are expanding those hours to more to an all-day type of situation. Reach Out Shelter typically closes on March 31st. The city is working with Catholic Community Services to see if it can remain open through April. City staff will continue regular communication with homeless service providers to ensure continued access to critical services. In regard to rent assistance, this is something that is critical and something that is on top of mind, and that's exactly why I had Sarah Bridgeford nearby and providing this information. Right now, with regard to rent assistance, the plan is to use current funds. The city will likely authorize nonprofits who have current grants flexibility to use their grant funds in response to the COVID-19 emergency. Typically, the city grants for 1 quarter, we're essentially allowing, quarter by quarter, we're essentially allowing the use of that grant money to be expedited. The total grant number is about $88,000, and then we will evaluate once that money has been exhausted. These providers are Catholic Community Services, Federal Way Community Caregiving Network, the Multi-Service Center, and St. Vincent de Paul. We're also very concerned and make sure that we are very focused on food assistance. The city is working with local food banks and other food resources to understand their needs in providing critical food and access to Federal Way residents and ensuring they have the support they need as food banks to continue this essential services. These partners include the Federal Way Senior Center and the Multi-Service Center. Congregate meal sites, they will work on meal sites and other and they'll be working with a number of other providers. Anticipated needs include both cash and food resources to meet expanded need, as well as resources to adapt given restrictions placed due to COVID-19. We want to make sure, especially during this time, that the people that need food have access to it, and we'll be watching this very closely. Additional funding, the city is considering CDBG, which is community designated block grants. The city is submitting a request for Congress to provide regulatory relief, allowing more CDBG funds to be used for public services in response to COVID-19. This would include additional rent assistance and food assistance. And I would imagine you're going to hear a lot more of that. It's something that I talked with Senator Wilson today to ensure that we're doing everything we can to provide assistance in these areas. Regional, state, federal funds, additional funding sources are being established and announced. The city is tracking these resources to ensure our residents have access to funds as they become available. In the general fund, the city will also consider the use of general funds to meet a variety of competing needs, such as rent assistance, and will prioritize deployment of those funds. And certainly I would need to speak with our city council about this, but I want to let you know that your health and safety and the well-being of you and your family is of paramount importance. With that, I'd like to turn it over now to Chief Vic Pennington of South King Fire and Rescue. Chief? Hello? Chief, can you hear me?
Are we there?
All right, there you are, Chief.
Okay, well, thank you, Mayor, and thank you for hosting this event. This is important, just as important as the first one we held a couple of weeks ago. I'd like to start by saying on March 9th, South King Fire and Rescue declared a state of emergency, and we staffed our Emergency Operations Center. So as we go through this, and as I said a couple of weeks ago, that we plan worst case scenarios, and we are going down that path in a pretty hard and fast direction. And so I'll lay out some of our priorities, and our primary priority is keeping firefighters and paramedics and our private ambulance personnel healthy, and that's our top priority. So we can continue to help the community we serve, and those communities are the city of Federal Way, city of Des Moines, and areas of unincorporated King County. As the COVID-19 event continues to unfold, it's important we all take steps to protect our first responders who are on the front lines treating our sick people. Many fire agencies in King County currently have personnel who are in quarantine and isolation from exposure to COVID-19 while at work. To date, across King County, 178 EMS workers are quarantined or have been quarantined. Currently, there are 56 in quarantine. 122 have returned to work. South King Fire and Rescue's had 10 members quarantined at various times during this event, and currently we have 2 members that are in quarantine. All are healthy and all have or will return to work shortly. We continue to work diligently with our partners at Public Health, with our partners across King County, the King County Fire Agencies and the King County Fire Chiefs. We meet multiple times a day if needed, but to look at plans and understand the science and the changes that occur during this. We are working with the cities of Federal, Des Moines, King County, EOCs, and the Health Department.
Look at the question.
South King Fire and Rescue, out of abundance of caution to protect our employees and our citizens that we serve, have taken the following actions. We have suspended public activities such as public education activities, and we have closed our public lobbies and spaces. This Monday, we will be implementing a modified work schedule for our non-emergent personnel to be able to work from home and have a minimum staff here at the department. We continue to work with our labor groups, our elected officials, to ensure the continuity of government and deliver the level of service that you expect and deserve. We have implemented health screening for all of our employees when they report to work and during their shift. If any of our members have signs or symptoms of illness, when they report, they don't come to work. If during their duty time in one of their checks, they have signs and symptoms of illness, they get relieved of duty. This is important. This will assist in maintaining a healthy workforce. We can provide service to our citizens. There are very few constants in this COVID-19 event. The dynamics change sometimes daily as the science begins to unveil the layers of COVID-19. However, for the public, there are some constants and best practices. Our older populations and those with underlying health conditions have proven to be vulnerable to this disease. Here's what you can do to help delay the widespread and transmission and lessen the impact on our healthcare system. Wash your hands with soap and water frequently for at least 20 seconds. Avoid touching your face with unwashed hands. Cover your mouth and nose with a tissue when you cough or sneeze. Stay home. If you're sick, stay home. Avoid close contact with others. Telecommute if your work allows us. And practice social distancing. Social distancing, this is really important, folks. So let me share some estimates that King County provided with me yesterday. If we do nothing relative to social distancing, it's estimated that there will be about 25,000 cases, confirmed cases of COVID-19, and about 20% of them, or about 5,000 people, will need hospital care. Our hospital system simply cannot support that level of care and sick people. 5,000, that's a lot. If we practice social distancing, the estimates are 5,000 cases of confirmed COVID-19, and about 1,000 of those will need hospital care. This is a manageable number of patients. So social distancing is very important. It's very important to your healthcare system as a whole. You can make a difference in your destiny. This is our destiny. You can make a distance that will result in better outcomes for all of us. Remember, we're all in this together. So I want to leave you with a couple of things. Check on your neighbors via telephone, especially those who are elderly, and many need assistance with obtaining groceries. Remember that even if you're young and healthy, you can still be a vector for the disease and should take appropriate precautions. South King Fire and Rescue is doing everything they can to provide you with a level of service that you deserve, and we will get through this together, all of us. Take care and be safe.
Thank you very much, Chief. All right, and now John Bowman from Lake Haven Water and Sewer. John?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Chief. Lake Haven's main priority is to maintain the distribution of safe water and the safe collection of and treatment of wastewater within our community. This time of year, we typically see water demands start to increase as we enter the spring and summer months. We have an ample supply of surface water from the Green River and from our groundwater reserves to meet all anticipated daily demands on our system. The water system maintains a prescribed chlorine residual in the water in accordance with EPA and Department of Health requirements to ensure that the water is safe and drinkable. The coronavirus is a type of virus that is susceptible to disinfection with standard water treatment and disinfection processes, such as chlorine, and we continue to perform our routine water testing protocols day in, day out. Because the water is safe, the Department of Health and the EPA continue to recommend that citizens continue to use and drink tap water as usual. Our current objective is maintaining staffing and resources needed to keep the water and wastewater systems properly functioning and available. We have implemented the recommended social distancing and disinfection protocols, as Chief Penitent had mentioned. We've restricted access to our buildings to employees only or by appointment only. We are screening employees and visitors for signs of illness and have canceled non-essential meetings. We are encouraging customers to use our alternate services by calling in with questions, paying their bills online, or using a drop box that we have outside our administrative building. In order to ensure that our water remains available to the community, we have suspended water shutoffs and water shutoff notices to people's homes. If someone has fallen behind on their bills, they will not get shut off. We have also restored water to homes that may have been previously shut off. If someone is having trouble paying their bills or having any other service problems, we encourage them to call our administrative office at 253-941-1516. We also have a customer assistance program administered by the Multi-Service Center, which may be available to help those who financially need some assistance in certain cases. Information on that program is on our website. That's lakehaven.org. We continue to review our business plans, and in the event that key employees become ill, we have staggered our starts and end times for some employees to minimize the exposures between staff members, and have included some home rotations and other measures. We will also be discussing additional measures with our board at a special meeting on Tuesday. That's March the 24th at 2 p.m. The details will be posted on our website. We currently have not had any staff exposures to COVID-19. We are maintaining a healthy number of staff to operate and maintain the system, with about 90% available for service. Our critical supply chains, which include chemicals and power, remain sound, so we're in good shape there. We do ask that residents to remember that while they're disinfecting their own homes, please do not flush paper towels and wipes of any kind down the toilet. These can easily clog your own sewer pipes and the public system. The last thing we want is for families to lose sanitary service to their homes or businesses under these circumstances. So in summary, the water is safe, and and it can be used for cleaning and drinking. We have an ample supply of water available to the community. There is sufficient staffing and resources to maintain operations, but please protect your sewer system from clogs and don't flush wipes or paper towels. And we will stay on the job making sure that the water remains available throughout this event. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you, John. And now to our police chief, Andy Wong. Chief?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. The police department in the last couple of weeks have made rapid and major operational changes to prevent the spread of the COVID-19. We're certainly operating with heightened attention to our normal infectious disease protocol as we're dealing with a virus that's very contagious. In the initial phase, we worked on gathering necessary personal protectional equipment, PPE equipment for officers, that's gloves, N95 masks, eye protection, disposable gowns. I wanted to take this opportunity to thank South King Fire and Rescue for loaning us some of the gear at the beginning to protect our officers. And a special thank you to Lieutenant Chris Cahan, who came into our agency and provided briefing training to all of our staff. We have changed the way we respond to calls for service, limiting contact by social distancing. One of the things we've done is closed the front desk lobby. So we do have signage at the police department doors directing our citizens to go to a call box. From there, you can call directly into our staff inside to communicate. For emergency calls, I would tell our citizens to call 911 like we've always have. And then also for non-emergency, we have non-emergency dispatch number, which can be found in our PD website. A couple examples of things that we're doing internally to prevent the spread. Patrol briefings are no longer conducted. If the lieutenant feels that a briefing is necessary, they do it outside in the back parking lot, in a covered area, or we've mainly been doing it by email. And for continuity of our operation, for example, even our command staff meetings are done through WebEx, and we've essentially reduced or eliminated non-essential meetings within the police department. One of the things I want our citizens to know is that when they call Valleycom, the call receiver is going to ask the reporting party if there are any sick members that might be at the call. That will help us determine what type of PPE equipment that might be applicable to that particular call. We ask for public's assistance on non-emergency calls. Officers will be reaching out to citizens by phone to take a phone report to limit contact. And we've canceled all our police community events. In-station reports, if a citizen comes to the front lobby, we're going to be taking the report at the outside, either at their vehicle, or we won't be taking reports in the lobby anymore. We're not allowing any visitors to come to the police department, our substation, or our detective area. All our ride-alongs have been canceled. Crime prevention programs are on hold. And as a city and as a police department, we have developed a voluntary quarantine option for our staff in the event they believe they've been potentially exposed to COVID-19. And with the school being out, our school resource officers have been deployed to traffic and also our special operations unit. We've suspended all our volunteer program. And obviously, as a police department, we're participating in our weekly outbreak advisory group and also with our Greater Federal Way EOC oversight group as well. And right now, we're operating with heightened awareness to protect businesses in our community, as many of them remain closed at this time. And like the fire department, the police department staff doesn't get time off during this crisis. They're risking their own health and their loved ones as well. Our citizens need to know that our first responders, police officers, stand ready to respond to whatever we're called upon to protect our community. So thank you, Mayor, for this opportunity to share some of the things we're doing in the police department.
Great. Thank you, Chief. I appreciate it. And I appreciate John and Chief Pennington and Chief Wong. Thank you so much for your partnership and for your work. Now, we've got quite a number of questions, and let's go ahead and get through them. Let's go to the very top. And also, do we have those? Let's see here. So Stephanie Lynn Chavez said, the mayor of Seattle is giving extra food vouchers for SNAP recipients. Are you going to do something similar for those on food stamps? Now, we have Sarah Bridgeford here with our Human Services. I asked her to weigh in on this. That's so you probably saw us in the background communicating. So right now, it's important that we work to ensure that our food banks have adequate resources, both food and cash, to continue operations. The city is looking at providing funding and food resources to keep food banks operational. We encourage residents to access those services. So that's something that I want to make sure that we keep those lines of communication open. And I do know that the school district is obviously providing meals to students in need. So that's something that we're watching. I do think it's also very important to note, and something when I'm talking with elected officials and emergency personnel, that the food delivery supply chain is in good shape. And so it is important that we do not hoard, that we do not buy more than is necessary. So there has been no indication whatsoever that these sources of resources for our community. But Stephanie, thank you so much for your question. We're going to keep a close eye on this, and we want to make sure that our less fortunate have the ability to access to food as much as we can. Okay, let's see here. So we have a question about the mall. I've heard different things about mall closing or mall staying open. My understanding is, well, actually the South Center Mall closed. We just saw that. So have we heard whether our mall has closed? I have not received information that the mall has closed. That's going to be a private decision, that they're going to make. Do we have somebody, one of the chiefs?
Mayor, this is Andy Wong. I could weigh on that. What I could tell you is that we have 3 officers that are assigned to the mall. It's a partnership that we have with the Malone Geyer ownership. They did reduce the hours, Mayor, and we just talked this morning as to whether they were going to follow suit with Westfield shutting the mall down. As of right now, the mall hours are they're open, reduced hours, and the 3 officers at the mall are being redeployed or spending more time at Target because they're doing a phenomenal amount of business over at Target. So our officers are spending more time there. But as of right now, the mall operations are still open with reduced hours.
Very good. Okay. All right. Oh, Scott Chase. Scott, thank you for watching, and thank you for your comment. I'll read it out loud. Scott writes, just a comment. Pierce and Snohomish counties are able to provide confirmed cases and deaths by city. There's no legitimate reason for the King County Health Department to not provide Federal Way our own statistics. And Scott, I think I'm watching Pierce County as well. I agree wholeheartedly. I'm trying to be a productive partner, but at some point we need to put our foot down. What I'm being told in the response I got back and that we've gotten back is that this really has to do with how the information is being provided by the healthcare providers. And when they provide that to King County Health, it sounds like they are cutting out the full address, which would include city. That's the information we have, but we're going to push back. We believe the people of our community have the right to know this information, and clearly there's got to be a workaround if other counties are doing it. So, as always, thank you, Scott, for doing your research. Margaret Simon, is the city checking in on our many senior and assisted living facilities? Do we have access to COVID tests in the event that COVID makes it to any of these facilities so we don't endure what Kirkland Life Care did? Margaret, great question. What I would say is that, Ray Gross, our emergency manager, visited the larger facilities in the past 2 weeks. The city does not provide the kits to the centers. They would need to get that from their corporate headquarters. Public Health is now handling the communications between the centers and the municipalities. So there has been contact. It's something that we have quite a number of senior centers in the city. It's something that we're looking at very carefully, and that the lines of communication are open. Eric Ortega writes, are we going to get testing out here in Federal Way areas? Well, first of all, on an individual basis, the websites and all the information says that if you believe that you or a family member have contracted the virus, then you need to reach out by telephone to your healthcare provider. That's the most important thing that I can give you. However, the information that we are hearing, and actually maybe with regard to first responders, Ray has provided us with the information. Testing is happening in Federal Way, but it's geared toward first responders because there's a shortage of kits. Time frame for more kits depends on the federal government. However, the private sector is stepping up as well to fill some of that void. Chief Pennington, can you tell us a little bit about your knowledge of testing, and then we'll go over to Chief Wong.
Sure, Mayor. I'm going to hand this off to Chief Goodsell. He is our health officer for this event.
So again, to reiterate what others have said, the testing is continuing to expand, and I would echo Mayor Ferrell's comment that your avenue is through your healthcare provider, and to follow up with their advice. We just don't have any additional information as far as additional locations.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for that information. Let's see here. Lots of questions. Thank you very much. And thank you so much for all your information. Actually, Dana had a question. Dana Holloway had a question for none of your dad. There we go. Dana Holloway writes, Lake Haven, re-stress or clarify that even wipes that was identified as flushable really are not.
Yeah, there's been a lot of discussion around whether, flushable wipes, as they're labeled, are flushable, and most are not. They do not break down in the system well, and they end up accumulating with fats, oils, greases, or in pumps and clogging the conveyance system back down to the treatment plant. So even those that are labeled flushable are not considered flushable.
Okay.
So,
all right. Thank you, John.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So Hans writes, please don't let Dow make one of our hotels a quarantine area. We've heard no plans from King County Public Health or the executive's office about that. If we do, we will certainly notify the public. All right, Debbie, I hope we got the volume. Part of what they were doing, you guys, part of why there was a volume issue is when I'm not talking, they try to mute me so we can hear other people better. So that's why sometimes you'll see a little bit of a delay. Hans writes, Hans, you got a couple of good questions here. Will there be an extension to the 30-day no eviction rule? I would anticipate that, Hans. It's at the very top of our list. My friend and the presiding judge of King County Superior Court, Jim Rogers, made that order. Actually, I really want to commend our King County Sheriff, Yohekne, for making the first decision and announcement that she was not going to be providing eviction assistance. Then the King County Superior Court followed, and that was Judge Jim Rogers, the presiding judge. And then the governor followed. And so I think right now for eviction protections, that's good. But, we're acutely aware that as this crisis continues, this is something that is at the very top of our list to ensure that this does not occur. Now, several cities have enacted either moratoriums or declarations. I know the city of Auburn has something on their calendar for this coming Monday. The city of Burien obviously took action, I believe it was earlier this week, and the city of Seattle as well. So it's something that I'll be talking with Council President Honda about, your hardworking council. And I want to reiterate, your council is working hard for you. I hear from our council every day with their ideas and their willingness to just assist in any way that they can. Okay. Deb Dowse writes, kids are gathering in large numbers at night at the park and ride by Target nightly. So, Deb, you bring up a really good point. I talked with John Hutton yesterday and today about park equipment. And while, my initial inclination with regard to park equipment, I drove by Town Square Park yesterday, and it was great to see people out and enjoying that park and other parks in our area. I went over to Steel Lake as well. But we've got to be really mindful in this community that it only takes a moment to, put your hand on or have your child put their hand on a toy or something and a piece of equipment that was just recently touched by perhaps somebody that is carrying the virus. So we are taking steps to cordon off our playground equipment. As much as that pains me to say, I think that's important to do to make sure that children don't contract it or carry it. And so for the foreseeable future at some of our major playgrounds, we're going to be cordoning those off and making sure that they're clean. So Deb, great question. It's something that was ongoing. My first reaction to that was not where we came down, but I think it's something that we have to do to protect everybody involved. Jill Adamore writes, I have been into two healthcare providers, both in person and virtually, who believe that I probably have, that she says that she may have COVID-19. I have asthma, but still have been told that unless I need emergency medical assistance to breathe, I will not be tested. Why don't we have sufficient testing? Both medical providers wanted to test me, but couldn't because there weren't enough kits. Jill will continue to relay that concern. I think that's something that is a developing area, and we need those resources, and we need that testing, and it's scary. And we want to make sure, every one of us, doesn't want to hear the dreaded words from a loved one, I think I may have this, and how do I get tested? We're going to be pushed to get those resources as soon as we can. Okay, Margaret writes, Margaret Simon. Sorry, did somebody want to jump in?
Mayor Ferrell, this is Chief Goodsell, and I just wanted to interject in that, if I may. I would encourage Jill to practice isolation and keep a distance from others and go under the assumption that she does have that infection and to take precautions and understand as well that those tests are being limited to people that require assistance so that it can help inform the care that the doctors are giving. And really would be great if we had more testing, but I think that is what's limiting us right now.
Okay. Thank you, Gordy. I hope everybody can hear me. I've been seeing these posts about whether the audio is good. You guys, can you hear me? Okay. All right. Well, thank you for letting us know. Kimberly, thank you for letting me know that you're having an issue hearing. We do want to make sure that we're doing that. Margaret Simon writes, as a former property manager of 2 decades, the non-eviction is only a first step. Once the 30 days are over, residents won't magically have their past due rent and late fees. We need protections for residents to allow them to catch up over the course of a few months once they start working again. Margaret, I 100% agree. And I think, we're a great community, and we'll make sure that we work with people. We're going to send out some guidelines. I want to let you know that's at the top of our list to make sure. And I think you bring up a real important, realistic point that this isn't going to just magically snap our fingers and we're going to have those resources. It'll take time for people to catch up. So we're on it. Thank you very much. Okay. Oh, thanks, Kim. It sounds like it is better. Good. Former Chief Al Church. This emergency is showing how well the Greater Federal Way Emergency Management Team is working. Job well done to all. It has taken many years of work to get the team working so closely. As a retired elder, I look upon this team with pride. Thank you, Chief. We really appreciate it. It's great to hear from you. I hope retirement is serving you well. We really appreciate that feedback. We're really fortunate to have Chief Pennington and his team and John and his team over at Lake Haven and also our police department with well led by Chief Wong, and our schools competently and enthusiastically led by Dr. Tammy Campbell. we got them a late notice about this, but we were in communication with their school district partner, who's also part of our EOC, and so they've been a great partner as this as well. Okay, Paul Berliski, Kent heard no news about hotel being purchased by King County until it was announced as a surprise. Are you being proactive to make sure we don't get surprised? Paul, great question. When I was a King County prosecutor, I used to always train young deputies with the wise words of people respond poorly when they're surprised. Looking to you, Ray. Ray, have you had any communications? Ray Gross, our emergency manager. Why don't we recheck with them and see if there are any plans and make sure that what we're doing is being very proactive. I'll also reach out with our King County Council member, Pete von Reichbauer, who I was talking with earlier today about our response and about his response. I was actually praising him for the number of emails and resources that he has pushed out through his electronic newsletter. So we've got a great advocate on our King County Council, and we'll make sure we reach out as soon as this is over, continue to do so. Okay, Gail Wax, please encourage Trader Joe's to start a carry service for seniors and high risk. Gail will do that. We'll reach out to them and relay that message. Thank you. Okay, let's see here. Hans Anderson asks, is Lake Haven one of the utilities that people have decided not to cut service on people? John?
That's correct. We've suspended any shutoffs to customers during this time, whether it be for lack of payment or some other need. We will shut off if there's an emergency, of course. If there's a leak in the home or something like that, and we need to shut off, we will do that, but not for just lack of payment at this point.
All right, thank you, John. That's a wise policy. Okay, Sam Rise asked, will the city stop doing homeless camp sweeps to prevent unnecessary exposures? Chief Wong?
In terms of trying to prevent the spread of COVID-19, our focus will not be addressing homeless encampments. Having said that, if we get a business or a property owner that asks the police department for assistance, we will continue to address those issues. But our focus right now is not, as an agency, to address homeless encampments.
Okay. Yeah, and I think I think the question assumes that there are people that are there. We have a couple of locations in the city of Federal Way where we've had prior encampments, and this is actually what's very common with the encampments is that people are there for quite some time. There's a large accumulation of trash and debris and needles and waste, and then it's abandoned. So we have a couple of sites throughout the city right now that need attention by private property owners, and we're not going to just let that sit. That's when I was out in the community. Part of the reason I wanted to go out there yesterday was to look at some abandoned sites where there is, garbage and debris and things that we're just not going to tolerate from a code compliance standpoint. But we're not out there sweeping occupied camps. But I do want to say, though, that in the time of emergency, we're still going to enforce the law, and private property rights are important. And if people are trespassing on your property, you need to let us know. But we're not engaging in behavior that will compromise our first responders. Eric Tobiasen says, how prepared is St. Francis for COVID-19? Any confirmed cases? Well, Eric, that's a great question. Remember about 2 weeks ago, it was on February 29th on the Saturday when we had the town hall meeting, we were informed that there were at least 2 possible cases, and then that was in addition to the initial case that we had received information about when news started first breaking, not through St. Francis, but out in the community. St. Francis is an important part of our EOC. When we went back east a couple of years ago for emergency management training, they're a part of it. We had an an EOC, Emergency Operations Center meeting that we did by phone with our key partners yesterday. We're going to have that every Thursday of those partners, and we'll make sure that we keep communicating with St. Francis. we're watching that very closely. They have emergency management personnel, and I did note when I drove by the hospital yesterday myself, as did our emergency manager, Ray Gross, who sent me some pictures. Outside the emergency room, there is a staging tent that has been set up, and we have not received any reports that they're overwhelmed, but our healthcare system is already, because of the flu and because of other things and just because of general capacity at these healthcare centers, there's not a lot of extra space. But I can tell you that they're taking steps right now when the governor ordered all non-mandatory surgeries to be canceled, and I think there are steps being made to increase capacity if that is necessary. Okay, Margaret Simon writes, I know Seattle hospitals are running out of personal protective equipment, otherwise known as PPE, and are being forced to make their own. How is St. Francis doing? Do they have adequate supplies? Margaret, I don't know about their supplies. I'll ask Ray to check in with them again. Ray, were you able to get a hold of them yesterday?
I did talk to Eileen.
Okay, so Ray did talk to Eileen with St. Francis yesterday. Is there anything you can relay that I could relay to the folks here?
Well, they have confined entrance to the
Yeah.
hospital and their buildings. As far as PPE, they're in the same boat as pretty much everybody else. They're getting a little unnervous about their quantities, but they have put orders through what they call the healthcare network.
Right.
And the strategic national stockpile. Both those are going to help.
Okay, so what I heard from Ray, and let me just, that there are efforts ongoing, that St. Francis is essentially in the same boat that a lot of organizations are with regard to personal protective equipment, but they're working right now to ensure they have those. Chief Pennington, how are you guys doing on PPE? And then I'll turn it over to Chief Wong to talk about the new equipment we received. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. We're doing well with our PPEs at this point. We did a large purchasing during the SARS event, and we've had those in our storage. So right now we're doing well. As this continues, we monitor our burn rates on our PPEs, and we've taken steps to ensure that we will have those. We're always out and with the rest of the agencies through King County EOC and Public Health to find additional PPEs. So they are a shortage. A national production is up, so we're hoping that we get some relief that way. There's also some federal caches and that we will eventually have access to.
Chief Wong, can you talk about the PPE that we just purchased?
Sure, Mayor. Regarding our PPE, we're doing fine. Fortunately, we had ample supply of gloves and N95 masks. And on the early set, couple of weeks ago, we did borrow some from South King Fire and Rescue to get by, but we did make some orders through Emergency Manager Ray Gross and other vendors. So right now, I've been told by the commander in charge of the PPE equipment that we're okay for a while.
Okay. I see, okay, Jill Adamore, and then we're going to go to Eric Ortega. Eric, I like your, actually, let's do Eric first. Eric writes, cough into your arm, Mr. Mayor. Now you need to wash your hands, sir. I know, it's a bad habit. I clear my throat frequently, and so by habit I do this. But you're right, absolutely. And it's when I walk in the door, the first thing my wife tells me is, wash your hands. It's the first thing that my son and I are required to do when we walk in the door. So we're going to get some hand sanitizer here in just a second. But Eric, thank you for the point well taken. Appreciate it. All right, Jill Adamore writes, and will the city provide housing for people experiencing homelessness to help prevent the spread of infection? And how can they wash hands if we don't help them find resources to stay safe? Well, Jill, we do have the day center, and that's why we open up the day center. The day center is a place where people can can wash their clothes, take a shower, get clean, wash their hands, eat, and that's something where we just expanded those hours. I don't think that we're going to go out and do a number of tents and that kind of thing. So I think that's something to watch out for. But I'm not sure we want to congregate more than a certain number of people as well. That could actually serve to infect those individuals. So I think we're going to, there are quite a number of services out in the community. That's why we wanted reach out to continue their operations. Okay, Eric, I got some hand sanitizer here. Thank you. I'll work on keeping my hands away from my face. So thank you very much. Okay. So, oh, there we go. Dina, please give the mayor a bottle of hand sanitizer. Okay. Okay. And let's see. Hans asked, has the Federal Way volunteer website up and working? If it is updated, how can we help? Is there a space where we can get some of the high schoolers who need volunteer hours to get help too? We're working on that. We'll push that information out soon. Okay, Dina, we got the hand sanitizer was provided to me. Thank you. I can see people are watching intently. Thank you. Okay, Karina Barth Kransky says our elders need help. I agree. We're going to help them as much as we can. Let's scroll down. Okay, and then go back up. Okay, we're about 4 minutes before we end. Let's go around the horn and do it in reverse order this time. Chief Wong, do you have anything to end off on?
No, Mayor, I just appreciate the collaboration that's been going on last couple of weeks with the policy group, Mayor's office, Greater Federal Way EOC Oversight Committee, and everyone that's been working together. And we stood up the Outbreak Advisory Group as a city. And I think this communication, even what you're doing today, getting the word out to our citizens is very helpful. And so I appreciate all the work you're doing, sir.
Thank you very much. All right, John?
I would echo what Chief Wong had mentioned, that the coordination between the agencies has been going on for a lot of years, and it's really something that's needed to continue, and it's shown through the cooperation of all the agencies to date.
Thanks, John. Okay, Chief Pennington.
Yeah, thank you again, Mayor, for hosting this. I would just say, I would echo the work that's been done with all of our agencies together. The Greater Federal Way EOC has been fantastic. This is about relationships. This is about working together. This is what we have practiced and spent a lot of time at, and this is the time that it's paying off. These are the dividends that we're receiving from all of this work that we've done together. And even in my over 4 decades of being in public service, I've noticed in this event across the state, across the county, across all boundaries, the agencies are working really well together. There's no territorialism. It is absolutely an incredible thing to see. And I have great confidence that we will all get through this. We will all get through this together. I just would remind people, practice your social distancing, practice the hygiene, take care of each other, look out for each other, do it safely. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chief. And don't touch your face. It's just like, it's one of those things that we're just used to, either whether when we cough or just our natural habit. So and then wash your hands. As soon as I think Wendy, my wife, is just really smart about this. When we walk in the door from wherever we're coming from, the first thing we should do is wash our hands to protect everybody around, to protect ourselves and the people that we love. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We'll keep this video on Facebook, on my Facebook page. It'll be on YouTube as well in case you miss anything. I want to encourage you to continue to go to our COVID-19 update page on our city website. And remember, those sites are also available with the state, with King County Public Health, with the Federal Way Chamber. The Federal Way Mirror has done a tremendous job as well, letting people know the information, and they even actually put this, the notice of this meeting together. I really want to thank our partners in the EOC. Chief Pennington, thank you so much. John Bowman with Lake Haven, Chief Wong, and thank you to the school district for all their work and everything they're doing. So we're going to continue to work on your behalf here at the city and with our different agencies. But I want to let you know that each one of us here at City Hall and in our individual local governments, we understand that we work for you and will continue doing so. Thank you, stay safe, and have a good day.